All right, let's get into Friday feedback for the week. On Friday, we'll go through the email, comments on various platforms, reactions, direct messages, the whole lot of it. You can always email info@davidpakman.com if you have a message you would like to submit. I want to start today with a bigger picture sort of issue that is facing the show right now. And I'm going to give you some example messages first, and then I'll kind of tell you where my head is at. Zahan Comedy on Instagram said, David, you and Bernie Sanders are the only two people who give me a hope for America. Keep pushing the truth, and hopefully people will open their eyes and ears. Okay, beautiful message, incredibly kind. I love it. Here's another one from Marianne, who said, Dave's firing on all cylinders lately. Love David's prescient June 6th analysis of MAGA being about belonging. Also his later observation about the right's willingness to debate. After not watching for a couple weeks, glad to see him firing on all cylinders. Love it. Thank you so much. Another one, H.H. Coney. I'm building to something. Stick with me, okay? H.H. Coney on YouTube says, thank you, David, for doing your job and showing day after day this BS to the world. Another positive comment, and I like it. However, you knew it was coming, okay? Celestial Reach says, the David Pakman show isn't really doing well, where you're, by the way, it's atrocious spelling and grammar. Let's keep to the core of the message. You're reporting yesterday's news, which is unfortunate because you're the most substantial creator on the left. You don't focus on the drama as much like Adam and Luke. Can you consider doing a live stream once a day, even 20 minutes of that day's news? Doesn't have to be as clean and edited, just an idea to try, keep up the work. Okay, a criticism that we are publishing news and it's too late. Okay. Chris on Instagram says, you give only conjecture and lopsided in nature reporting. It's sad. I hope you learn a more mature version of fact reporting and honest, unedited journalism. Okay, so another criticism here. So let me big picture it, okay? The audience is as big today as it has ever been. And so the position that we find ourselves in all the time is that the bigger the audience gets, the more opinions there will be as to what the show should be. We get emails from people all the time right now saying, David, you're not being alarmist enough about the authoritarian slide of this administration. You need to be louder and scream and be more passionate and blah, blah, blah. Okay. The other side, David, you're being too alarmist. You're being too hyperbolic about the threat of authoritarianism. This stuff is really not that bad. You need to tone it down, actually. We get people who write and say, David, could you do the show later in the day so by the time you publish it, the news is less stale and it can be more breaking news? And of course, we are not a breaking news show. And even if we record the show later, we're always going to miss something because there's 24 hours between shows. So I've explained it. It doesn't really matter when we produce the show because it will always be the case that something will seem stale by the time all the clips publish. Okay, here's the most important thing. The show has to be the stories I feel like talking about in the way I feel like talking about them. Now you might say, well, but David, we think you should be talking exclusively about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or why not make it a foreign policy show or interview activists every day or what? If the show is anything other than just what I feel like making it, number one, it's going to be disingenuous. It's not going to feel genuine. And number two, we just have a different problem than corporate media with 7 layers of editors and producers, which is all of a sudden I'm taking direction from other people as to what the show should be. Now, of course, when I hear from my audience, this particular story is incredibly important. And if I have something unique to say about it, I consider that and I say, well, that is something to consider. But fundamentally, if this show just isn't what you would like it to be, there are other shows that maybe are that. Sometimes people say you need to do deeper analysis of bills. Well, sometimes I do. Last week I did an analysis of a bill that I didn't think was getting enough coverage. But there are shows that just look at congressional bills. That's the show for congressional bills, not this one. Or, David, I don't like that you deal with only domestic issues. I want it to be Ukraine and Gaza. Well, there are shows that do that, I assume. It's not this show. So here's the most important thing, I think, in this environment. We're trying to build an ecosystem here, okay? No one show can be everything to everybody. And no show is going to be liked by everybody. I'm aware that there are people who were pulled into the political space by me, but now that their interests are more defined as either foreign policy or activism or education, they've moved on to other shows. That's okay. What we want is to keep growing overall and keep growing the ecosystem. So my message here is we're always working to make the show as good as we can. We're always meeting the team to talk about how can we improve this? How can we improve that? If the show is not what you want it to be, of course, let us know what it is you want, but understand that there are other shows that maybe are the show you're looking for. And that's also okay. But with our community, we're going to keep doing the best to make it a genuine show that reflects what I'm paying attention to, what I'm thinking about, etc. And the one change we are going to be making, because we think that this is something we can do with only upside, we are looking at moving to earlier in the day, what is now like the 9 p.m. YouTube video show, the full hour show that's at 9 p.m. We're going to move that to earlier in the day. So it's still not a breaking news show. It's always going to be the case that some stuff is on the next show. But we think that we can move the 9 p.m. show up like 2 to 3 hours. More people will be able to get it for their commute home. More people will be able to have it when they're in the gym after work. So I think that that just has upside. More information about that upcoming. All right. Let's get to a couple of other messages. Brian Meyers says, since when is your dumbass opposed to more spending? If Dems were in charge, they'd be spending even more, and you'd be cheering it, calling it a monumental investment. Sit down, Gumby. So here's the deal. I've criticized wasteful spending under both parties. The real question is, what is the money for, and does it help people? Food stamps are one of the most economically stimulative government spending programs. When you give people food stamps, it gets multiplied into the economy through what we call an economic multiplier, and it does a lot of good in addition to getting people food who need food. On the other hand, lowering the top tax rate for the richest Americans, money that is disproportionately just put in banks, which banks can loan out, the multiplier isn't zero, but it is way less economically stimulative. So for me, it's never about I'm opposed to more spending or I'm for more spending. When we're talking about programs that help people in economically stimulative ways, I'm for it. When we're on random spending on just replacing bombs that we already have too many of that we'll never use and feeding the military industrial complex like a bottomless pit, yeah, I'm against that. And as many of you may know, my instinct is not, let's solve a problem by raising taxes. My instinct is not, let's solve a problem by just spending more. Sometimes that's the solution, but we want to evaluate that. And so, I'm for or against spending. It's like, am I for or against screwdrivers? It's like, what are we trying to do? If I'm trying to write a book, the screwdriver is not super useful. If I'm trying to screw in screws, then it is. All right. Job Kayflow says, cough, douche. You may be one of the most unintelligent, what do you call yourselves again? Contributors. The way that you just presented that and then listening to it, we're not even close to each other, first of all, which why don't you just say, hey, I'm going to play this video and I want you to think this, but I'm lying, so here we go. Where do you hear this? Job Kayflow, I'm not sure what your first language is, although I actually know it's English. It's just an atrocity. I'm not totally sure what you're saying. I don't believe this is the right show for you. Okay, that's my instinct. Some comments leave me speechless. This is almost poetic in its chaos. And I don't think there's anything I can say that's going to make this the right show for you. All right, TR says, this is good stuff. I like this. You cannot be a cold-blooded capitalist and a genuine progressive. Capitalism is literally killing people the world over. You have to actively reject the profit motive and efficiency drive in many cases to best serve society's needs. I'm going to answer this as if it's addressed to me. I don't know that when they say you, I don't know if they mean one cannot or David, you can't. I do consider myself a capitalist, but not a cold-blooded capitalist. It is very fair to say that there's a tension between participating in a system and criticizing it. Okay? I don't claim to have a perfect answer. What I can tell you is my viewpoint is that well-regulated forms of capitalism, like what I write about in my book that exists in Denmark, Sweden, and other countries. Oh, it's so cliche. Well, they're good examples for a reason. What exists there right now is the most evidence-based, best form of government that I have studied. Now, if someone wants to bring to me examples of a socialist organization, an anarcho-capitalist organization, communism, and you say, here's evidence that that you get better outcomes, I'm willing to examine that. Sometimes when I say that, people will go, well, we don't have any good examples because all of the ones that we have were perverted or messed up, like, for example, the Soviet Union and this and that. Okay, well, but so then someone should try the experiment. But to say that in some way I am the cold-blooded capitalist while claiming to be a progressive is very much untrue. The way I would like to go is from where the U.S. is now, which I believe is a too under-regulated form of capitalism, in the direction of something like what we see in Northern Europe. And I think that the best empirical case I can make is for that. That's where I am. And I welcome other views and dissenting opinions. All right. Remember that we will be relaunching and totally rejiggering our Substack. And I'm going to tell you about that soon. But get on my mailing list just so you're ready. You can email info@davidpakman.com. Say, David, please put me on that newsletter, or sign yourself up at davidpakman.substack.com. We have a phenomenal bonus show today. We have a phenomenal week of shows coming up next week. So thank you so much for joining me this week, and I'll see you soon.